Hello again, and here we are. And if you've been following the conversation with myself and Andy Bissell and Ian Macrae, talking about the Ambient Lighting Manifesto and who ought to be a lighting designer, this is the bits and pieces that came out of what was in effect an hour and a half's conversation that I think is worthwhile just chucking in as a kind of design chat miscellany for the sake of it. This is what we got through.
Hi, I'm Andrew Bissell. I head up the lighting design group for Cundall.
Hi, I'm Ian Macrae. I'm an independent consultant and I also train on behalf of the LIA and the University of South Wales.
And I'm John Bullock, and I'm a lighting designer, and I'm also the publisher and editor of the Light Review. Can I put something else into the mix here? And this is maybe says something about the kind of work I'm doing, and that is the kind of light fittings that we're using. Because if we're talking about professional, commercial, modular, downlight projector fixtures on the grounds that, you know, a fitting with a source in it has got a profile of how much of a torch it might be, what about decorative lighting? You know, what if one of the problems is the light onto a vertical surface, a white globe will do that.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a wall wash. So to what extent, when we're talking about the aesthetic of lighting design now, my worry is that we end up with fantastically controlled spaces that have all been done with versions of a downlight or versions of a modular fitting, versions of a wall wash. We're just taking that surface and going bang over there, bang over there, bang down there. But the image that they use in the article of the hotel with the shades over the top of the reception, well, that's a legitimate source. And you know, we've put a piece out on the Light Review about how there's an awful lot of lighting designers who are not going anywhere near decorative lighting. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe it's because decorative lighting people don't do photometrics. So perhaps that we're trying to get away from task illumination when every source that you are, every luminaire that you're likely to be looking at is based upon task illumination of one sort or another. Whereas actually what we ought to be looking at, possibly, is a globe, or one of them, or one of them. Yeah. But anything other than, Ian, there's a technical term for just a light bulb hanging on a string. What's that distribution that you get from a bare light bulb? What's that called?
Oh, now you put me on. Yeah, okay. It'll come back to me if I don't think about it. But it's interesting you say that, because if you go back to Kit's method to look at how many lumens per meter squared come back to the eye, the method actually takes the light sources out of the field of view, out of the camera view. So if you go back to your sphere, I mean, clearly the eye sees that. It's a brightness source in your field of view. Your brain reacts to it, and yet the calculation says no. I mean, we haven't discussed light sources particularly, but LED, I mean, one of the problems, glare is coming back, not because glare is suddenly an issue to the eye, it's because LEDs have this center luminance that is just massively 4, 5, 6 times beyond what the eye can cope with, and we're just ignoring it. Yeah. But John, you're going to put a globe in there, which may be the right thing, but you're going to get value engineered out for a cheaper one, which doesn't have the optical control. And suddenly we're going to have glare problems, and people are going to go, Andy, I know your design was, you're rubbish. Clearly you don't know what you're talking about. It's not Andy's fault.
Let's not go down the value engineering line.
But we have to, not because I'm against value engineered luminaires, but the idea of having professional designers who know what the hell they're talking about and have experience on every job is an issue of money. And it's going to get value engineered out because the manufacturers are going to go, I can make some money out of swap spec here. So I'm going to have a lighting designer, engineer, whatever you want to call them, on my team who's going to do it free of charge. And the professionals are not going to make any money, as they're not particularly making money now, except with the right clients. And so you're going to shift the paradigm, but you're also going to shift the ways of making money and selling luminaires. And we will still end up with a part of the business that is semi-professionals doing designs to sell products, not because the paradigm shift has made it a better space.
Are we going into that realm of competencies here? You know,
I don't think we should, only because you have to be. There's a legal definition of competence. You have to be competent to practice emergency lighting.
Yes,
and we have exactly the same phrase there, that 80% of emergency lighting is designed by a contractor who goes and asks a wholesaler, which product have you got available? And it's not designed, it's fit and forget, and will I ever get caught? Probably not.
But is this the fundamental problem? We're just accepting these things. We're accepting value engineering. We're accepting that they're going to go and do the design free of charge. We're accepting that they're going to go to the wholesaler and just say, give us an equivalent. I'm not even going to go, I've got a job at the moment where the light's going in, you know, I wouldn't give them away, you know. They just need to go straight in the skip. But but we're accepting it. And is it not the time to say, look, if we want to improve lighting as well as getting the right person on board, we've got to say no to all these things. We've got to stop people doing it free of charge. I mean, I'm interested to know the legal standing of this. That we see calculations come through. We don't tend to go out to people to do our calculations. We do them ourselves, but when we do see calculations come through, there's a little caveat on the bottom saying we are not responsible. I challenge that. If as an expert, as a lighting person, you've produced a calculation, doesn't matter whether you've written, you're not responsible. You are, because you've issued it. And I'd love to talk to a lawyer about that.
You should. Because there's a wonderful guy, I'll put you in touch with him, a guy called, actually no, his name's Philip Wright of Wright Hassel, I think he is. I'll correct that name later. On the advanced certificates we teach, of course, we teach emergency lighting, and you have to know your legal status. What's a competent engineer? And what if you give free advice? Yeah. And he came back and said, well, there's a clear definition of what is competent. And competent is kind of measured against the average person in your profession. So if you take professional lighting designers who are qualified, that's quite a difficult thing to be competent at. But if you take people practicing lighting design, lighting application, that's a massive scale, and therefore it's very easy to be competent because you've got to be better than 50% of them, and most of them walk into a wholesaler and say, can you give me a light source, please? The thing about the contractual thing is lots of free design is on the basis that I don't take any money off you, therefore I'm not contractually liable. The test in a court of law is, did you treat that person as an expert? So if Andy, if I come to you and say, give me some advice, and you say, yes, it's free advice, therefore there's no contract.
I wouldn't say that because
I don't think we can
say that. But I don't think we can say just because.
Well, let's assume for the moment you did. Yeah. The first time I do it, there is no contract. I ask you for free advice. You give free advice. I can't come back and get you. But the second time I come to you and say, Andy, your advice was really good last time. Will you tell me again? And you say yes. There is an implied contract because I've come to you expecting some expertise, and you've admitted you are an expert by saying, yes, I'll advise it. So you only have to go to one client twice and say, give me some advice. And suddenly there is a contract in law.
Yeah. So and I agree with that. I don't think you can write that caveat and say these calcs are nothing to do with us, even though all we do is lighting, and all we do all day long is lighting and lighting calculations. But by the way, I'm giving you no right to come back at me. I disagree. I think I could go back to those people and challenge them. If the design was found to be wrong at the install stage and the calculations were wrong, I could go back to that company. So for me, they shouldn't be doing it free of charge because they've got to pay PI. They should be paying PI for doing design. For design or for manufacturing.
Well, actually, when we teach, so the emergency lighting course, I'm still trying to get John to come on because he wants to be a competent engineer, even though the course doesn't give you a certificate that says competent. But the point is that when we teach that, we say to them, okay, so you give out free design and then you back off and say, I'm not liable. But the truth is you are liable. You are giving a design advice, and you are claiming to be competent by doing things like ignoring a risk assessment that you know has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you start explaining to people, I say to them, so you now need to go back to your boss and say, it's not manufacturer's PI, it's not public indemnity insurance for holding an event, running a cable across the street. It's now that you have given design advice, so you are liable. And the number of calls I get from bosses saying, why did you teach this?
Yeah.
And I go, because it's the legal case, you need to be aware. You need PI cover. Oh, no, we give free advice. Yeah, but I still think you need PI cover.
Yeah. So no, I fully agree with you, and I think it is massively misunderstood that we could come back to those people if we used their calculations. I mean, there'd be a grey area because we've accepted them and we're also experts and we've not challenged them, but nonetheless, I think it is. But
well,
therefore,
then it's your PI cover then.
Well, that's the grey area, isn't it? You've accepted their calculation, but then again, you've gone to them because they're experts. So if they've provided you information.
I've said to manufacturers who've done counts that I will be placing reliance on the results that they give me.
Yeah, I think you can. I think
you should. You should tell them that, and you should also say, if it goes wrong, I'm going to come back and you're going to put it right. So please be aware. I think the thing about the PI cover, Andy, is you are paying for it. I mean, the free design is not free. The people who are doing it are paying for those lighting designers. That's coming out of their profit margin. Some of them are highly profitable companies and less profitable because they have lighting people working for them.
Yeah.
But you're paying
it's
for
free.
Somewhere.
It's free at that upfront stage, and the client's not obliged to go else to use that company, are they? So from a client's perspective, they're getting free advice. Okay, I'll give you something new. Can I give you something new then? Okay, will they be happy in the post-COVID world? We sent out a survey quite early on. We ought to do it again as we come to winter now. And we sent a survey. I think 276 people out of our 900 staff responded, some overseas, some UK. And from that, there's a couple of things we took from that. Excuse the printer going mad at the moment. But from that, nobody wants the big light. You know, nobody wants the big light. Nobody was turning their light on even when they needed it. Everybody was sat with it. I say everybody, 99% of people sat within 2 meters of a window. Who wants to go back to an office and be 8 meters from a window under a big light? Nobody. Not according. Okay, I appreciate that's 276 people out of the entire world, and I appreciate that's therefore not enough people.
But there's a difference, Andy. There's a difference, Andy, between nobody wants to and whether they will accept it because the boss says come back to work and you
why
need to be
accept
here.
it when we move forward? When we move forward, why accept that?
I agree.
You want me to drive to Manchester and sit 6 meters from a window under a big light. I tell you what, I'll stay at home. Oh, you're not prepared to accept that? Okay, I'll find another company that is.
But that's the fundamental thing. Everyone's saying we want to return to the office. No, absolutely I don't. No. I've been out of the commercial world for a while. I like my home office. What I miss is the occasional, like this. I would much rather we were doing this in a room together because you get much more human interaction. Right. So the office space is dead for me. What does work is the meeting space.
Exactly right. Yeah.
And if we have quarter of the number of office buildings, but they are flexible meeting spaces where you can engage with humans on a human level, but then I have an extra room in my house where I can actually be very productive when I want to, not when the boss wants me to, because I happen to be better at 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the evening, not at 9, 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. And if you move that, then this is my office space. How do I light it?
Yeah, exactly. And the interesting thing here is, so are we chasing some standards for an old way of working that nobody wants? And why should we pursue that just because a few bosses don't trust their staff and they're going to insist that they come back to the office? To be honest, those companies that do insist you come back, maybe they're the ones to run a mile from.
Well, they'll be the ones alongside the others who are saying, we'll have a constant 24-hour Zoom meeting so that I can see you're at your desk doing something.
Yeah, I've got no problem with having an iPad to the side of me that's always on, that shows me working, because that's no different to being in the office. I've got no problem with that. We trialed it with all our lighting designers. We left a Teams meeting on all day so that we could all hear each other and we could all see each other all day long, just so that you could catch those ad hoc chats. Oh, Hannah, have you seen Beyonce's going on tour? Those chats that you'd have in the office. I don't know if she is actually. I was just making that up. I know Hannah loves Beyonce, so that's why I'm making that up. But, you'd have those ad hoc chats. The only thing weird about it was that everyone was staring at you because they were on one screen and I was trying to work on my other screen in front of me. Whereas normally in the office, people are sat either side. So we said, oh, wouldn't it be interesting to have
a sideways camera,
iPads
so I'm
either
doing
side
this.
of you? So you turn and go, hey, Hannah, have you seen this? Have you seen that? And everyone is permanently connected. You don't dial them. You start work, and everyone who starts work is permanently connected.
Well, there we are. I hope that's been useful for you. Two guys who I think it's always worthwhile listening to. The opinions are always sound, and it's fun to be with them. I hope it was fun for you to be earwigging, as it were, for that. See you next time. Cheers. Bye.